Coming up next on The Amazing Art Show, blending autumn's colors. Hi, and welcome to another edition of The Amazing Art Show. I'm your host, Angie Beam, and we've got a really awesome project today. Let's go over what you're going to need. Nothing really weird today. You're going to need some construction paper. I've got black, blue, green, and purple here. It's kind of up to you to depending on what colors you might want to pick. But as we kind of go, you'll see probably more why I picked these colors. They kind of go with what we're doing today. And then your blue piece will need to be the larger piece, but your purple and your green can just be small. And then you will also need, I have a big one, but you actually could do it on the smaller version of just a black sheet of construction paper. You'll need some glue. You are going to need scissors and colored chalks, and that should be about it. So let's talk about what we're working on today. In class, we've been talking about creating depth in your artwork, and so we've been talking about foreground, middle ground, and background, and how the objects that are in the foreground are the things that are closest to you, and so they're drawn the largest, and they have the most amount of detail, brightest colors. And then, the middle ground's kind of medium on all those things. And then, of course, the background are the things that are far off in the distance. And so they're smaller, less dynamic in color. And so we've been talking about like how you can create that in your work. And so sometimes, even though we're doing a drawing, sometimes they still will have, where they still are kind of having a hard time with the concept. So I thought about, let's really break it down into the pieces. So that's our project today. We're going to be doing like physically a foreground, physically a middle ground, physically a background, okay? All right, so I kind of started off by looking at Vincent van Gogh's Wheat Fields with Crows. And I don't know, there's just something about it that I really enjoyed. I liked that it kind of showed those different areas. But once again, I mean, you guys know, because I love Vincent van Gogh. He's one of my favorites. So I don't know, kind of liked it. It was October-ish, so I was kind of feeling kind of creepy, and it looked kind of creepy to me. And so I thought, well, this is something, that we could do. And if you want to make it a little more creepy, you can. Mine, in the end, didn't look very creepy. But you might want to go another direction with yours. So this particular painting of Vincent van Gogh's, they believe that this is one of his very last paintings that he ever did. And so I think that's kind of interesting that it's kind of creepy and mysterious and kind of scary looking. So interesting that was one of his last paintings before he ended his life. So, all right, so let's talk about your paper. I want you to start out with your black piece of paper. And so we're starting on the foreground. So it's going to be the objects that are going to be the largest in your picture. It's the things that are closest to you in the picture. So I'm actually just going to draw with a piece of chalk. And we're going to be doing some kind of large pumpkin shapes. But then I also am going to have like a ground line that's going to run behind them, okay? So I'm just going to start out with my pumpkin shape. And just because the nature of pumpkins, these do not have to be perfectly shaped pumpkins. And let's see. And you can also have them go off the page as well. So I've kind of got, all right, and I'm going to go ahead and draw my lines in there. And you want to keep this part really simple because you're actually going to be going back over these lines. You're going to be redrawing them with chalk. With chalk. You're already drawing them with chalk. You're going to be redrawing them with glue. So you want to keep things pretty simple. So don't be going all super crazy and super detailed. You can add a couple leaves and some things like that, but just don't get crazy detail because that's kind of hard to do with your glue. And in areas like I'm just kind of drawing over some of my other things. If you really wanted to, you could go back and erase inside there. I'm not going to do that. All right, and so then I talked about my ground line, and I'm just going to do kind of an uneven line, horizon line that'll kind of run to the back, okay? And so then I'm going to get my glue and pray that it works. It's going to. All right, and so basically all you're going to do is you're just going to, you want the tip of your glue bottle to rest on your paper, and you are just going to redraw those lines. And the thickness that they are, like as far as the chalk goes, that's a pretty good guideline to go by. You don't want it super thick, but you don't want it super thin either. So the width of your chalk line is really pretty perfect. So if you can kind of just try to stay in that area. You should not have your glue bottle way up here and be trying to drip it down like this. That takes a whole lot longer than it needs to, and you kind of end up with places where you have more glue than you should. So if you will just kind of rest the tip down, tilt it to the side a little bit, and start tracing everything, you'll be good to go. It will take your glue probably around 7 to 8 hours to dry, okay, fully. So you're going to put this to the side, and I obviously already have one that I've done, and so I'm going to move this one over here, and I'll pull this one in. I already cut some of my paper off just to save some time. So this is what it looks like when it's dried. The glue lines dry clear, and so you can see that the black line, and once we start adding color to it, it looks really awesome. So, so now all you're going to need to do is you're going to get your scissors, and you're going to cut right along your glue line, the horizon line that we kind of talked about. And you will know if you run into glue because it will be very hard to cut. Not that you can't cut it, but it will be kind of difficult. And so you're just going to cut the shape out. And then we are going to be adding color to this using our colored chalks. And we also were talking in class about, you know, blending your colors and creating highlights and shadows and you know, kind of how to do that with your color. And we also talked about, you know, using some unusual colors. You don't necessarily always have to use just orange on a pumpkin, or you know, you can use some other colors to create highlights and shadows. All right. Okay, so I think I'm pretty good there. Looks pretty good. All right, so I'm going to move this over to the side, and I'm just going to put a piece of paper under me because this is kind of messy. All right, so what you're going to be doing, I want you to kind of think about this area back here that is not pumpkin area. I want you to think about this as kind of being maybe like hay or something kind of a light color. So I really kind of thought of like cornfields, or I thought about wheat fields. So I kind of, you know, I kind of started using that as my palette color. So I kind of came in, and the cool thing about this is you want to get it right up next to your glue line, but don't cross your glue line. And it won't let you cross the glue line, so it works out really well. And I just kind of started by putting some color down, and I'm not being particularly precise about my color. And then I don't want it to just be that one color. Like I said, we're going to kind of use some other colors in there. And so I'm going to add a little bit of a dark one. And then what I want you to do is you're going to come in, and I want you to blend your colors using your finger. And for those of you that don't like to get dirty, sorry, you're going to get dirty today. And this chalk dust, instead of blowing it into the air, if you will just kind of tap it to get that off, it's really not good for you to breathe, so don't be blowing it into the air. All right, and then kind of down in this area, I'm going to come in here. And same thing over here. All right, and then I'm going to get it. All right, so now I've kind of got my background part done, and I may come back and add a little more to that, but at the moment I'm going to kind of stop there. All right, so then to your pumpkins, and I want you to kind of think about, because your pumpkin is a round object, I want you to think about, you know, where would your shadows and where would your highlights be? Typically when something is round, you know, you're going to have shadows that are on the outer edges of it, and it's going to be more kind of lit towards the middle to show that roundness. And so I want you to kind of think about your darkest colors on your edges. But I'm actually going to start on this one that is like not the farthest one over, but the second to the farthest. And I'm going to just come in here and add my color. And I'm going to come back to that one in a second. Same thing, I want to blend. I just love how a chalk looks after you've blended it. It just looks so soft. And I'm going to come in with a little bit of a darker kind of orangey red. And I'm going to kind of blend that in, getting it closer over to the edge because it's going to be darker that direction. And I'm going to come in with even a little bit of a brighter yellow kind of right in there. All right. Give it a little tap. All right, and so I'm going to keep moving in towards the middle of the pumpkin. My husband brought home the most beautiful pumpkin, and talking about not being the typical orange colored pumpkin, it was like this most beautiful color of coral. It was awesome. I was like, that is so cool. Where did you get that? And I can't remember now where he told me, but it was so beautiful. I couldn't even carve on it. I was like, I don't want to touch it. It's so pretty. So, so we just left it, and it's just sitting there in all its glory, not carved or anything. All right, so as I move towards the center, this is going to be one of my lightest areas. And don't forget that something else that you can use as a color option is just white. So you can come in here and really lighten this up. All right, so I'm going to keep going. And so I'm going to kind of put this over to the side so I can... oh wait, I was going to talk about this edge. Let's talk about that real fast. Okay, so this is going to be where my shadow is going to be. I'm going to have it here, and it'll also be over here. And we talked about using a color, a color other than, yellows and oranges and things like that. So I'm going to come in with like kind of a dark turquoisey color. That's going to be on my most outer edge, and I'm going to blend that. And I really did not change fingers when I blended, so it still has a tad bit of the orange on it. And I'm going to come in with a lighter, just a little bit of a lighter blue. And I'm going to come right next to that, even onto the one that I've already done. I'm just going to bring that color over there a little bit as well. And you can see how your glue lines are really creating the lines that you would see, you know, on the pumpkin. And then also think about that, you know, the pumpkin resting down on the ground, it will create a shadow downward as resting on the ground as well. So I usually will bring a little bit of that color kind of down towards the bottom a little bit as well. And then the other thing is down here on the ground where it is, you know, resting on the ground, it's also going to create a shadow down there. So I'm going to come in with some purple in these areas. And I'm not covering up all of my yellowy color that I put down before, but I'm just kind of going to kind of put it in some places. All right, so I'm going to move this one over to the edge and show you what it looks like. All right, so this is my pumpkin that is complete, okay? Now, the other thing that I want you to do, and this is going to sound really weird, is you're going to ask Mom first, because you don't want to get the good stuff, but you're going to get a little bit of hairspray, and you're just going to spray it on your chalk, and you just want to kind of give it a really light, ooh, that's kind of going everywhere, light coat, and then it will, it just kind of seals your chalk a little bit, and there may be some people that don't like it, but it kind of gives it this speckledy look that I absolutely love. So, you know, usually your pumpkins aren't perfectly clean, so like I just got like some big drips like this, and when those dry, you'll still be able to see them. So it kind of gives it that look of a, you know, a pumpkin that's just come out of the field and it's dirty. All right, so I'm going to leave that there. All right, so now on to my middle ground and then my background. And you can kind of exchange whichever you want to do where. If you would like to do the green farthest in the background, you can, or if you want to do purple farthest in the background. I am going to do, I think I'm going to put green farthest in my background. And I'm just going to cut kind of a rolling, very rolling, small, shallow hills. And so that's going to look just kind of like that, just straight across. You do not want to, because you're going to be putting this on your pumpkin page, you don't want to cut from the corner and go up like this. It needs to start at the side and go straight across. So I had some of my kids today that were coming in and they were cutting up here and then going over there, and then when they laid it down on their paper, it doesn't go all the way across. Not that you can't fix that problem, but you know, you don't have to get into the problem to begin with. Just do it right to begin with. And then I'm going to do my a little more mountainous hills. I'm going to do those purple. Now this part, you're going to come in and you're going to actually be using chalk on these areas as well. So put your scraps out of the way. And you want to, you know, just make these areas different. So think about like if this is on your large blue sheet of paper. You want these areas to be very different from one another. So eventually this is going to go on here. So you want your purple or whatever color you choose to use to be up high enough where you can see it. Same thing with your green. You may want to show more or less of one color or the other. Let's talk a little bit about your color on here. So I want you to kind of think about, we talked about you want to make it different. And you can use the color paper that you have, but I also want you to come in and I want you to add some extra color. So I know that I'm just going to come in here and kind of start adding some color. And you want it to be different, so don't make it all the same. And I'm not being real precise on where I'm putting all this. And I'm going to blend it with my finger. And I want you to kind of think about, you know, I kind of kept referring back to a couple of Vincent van Gogh's pieces that he had, just colors that he, you know, might have chose. So I kind of tried to stay in that area. I also looked at his Starry Night picture as well, which you'll see a little hint of that in my background here in a second. And like Vincent van Gogh, he also loved to do where you could kind of see the brush strokes. So you can also accomplish that with your chalks. It's a little, you know, you can kind of rub them in where you can still kind of see them a little bit. And I'm having a hard time getting this paper off this table today. You might want to also think about, you know, where the mountain would be maybe lit up by the moon, where it would have shadows. So kind of, you know, think about that as you're working. And also the other thing that I did, oh God, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't have a black, but I do. On the edge of this one, I'm not going to do it on my other one that I'm going to show you here in a second, but on this one, because I really want to distinguish it and make it look different than my other green piece, I actually came back with a black at the very end. And go back with your finger and you want to blend it. But it really makes it pop and it kind of pulls it away from the other piece. All right, so we're gonna pretend like I'm done with that one. And then on this one, I was thinking kind of like tall grass. So I came in with a ton of very linear, I used a lot of diagonal lines. And I did lots of different colors in there. And then once I kind of got it filled with the colors that I wanted to, and I'm using blues, I'm going to come back with a little bit of white in some places. And notice too on the mountains and on this part, I'm not going down all the way because there's going to be a lot of this that you won't really even be able to see. And I think to darken it up a little bit, I'm going to do a little bit of purple. Not a lot, just a little bit. And then I'm going to come back with my finger again and I'm going to do a little bit of blending. I'm going to blend it kind of in the same way that I laid it down on the paper. So my finger is going in a diagonal manner. All right, so kind of like that. And I think I would like a little more lighter colors in here. And you can keep, you know, just keep adding colors. You guys know whenever we're doing something like this for the TV show that, you know, I come in and do this really fast. But when I'm getting ready for the show and I'm getting my project ready, you know, it takes me a long time to do the art to make it look the way that I really want it to. But when I'm kind of just showing you the steps, I'm doing it, you know, fairly quickly, okay? All right, so this will kind of rest here, okay? All right, so moving on to my background, my blue sheet of paper, I want you to take your pumpkins and kind of not attach, but lay it there. And I want you to lay your other pieces there as well, because this is going to help you know how much is going to show up here, okay? So what I'm going to do just to kind of help myself out is I'm going to take a little piece of chalk and just kind of mark it and then put these to the side for a few more minutes. And then this is where I kind of went Starry Night just because I love it so much. So I did a lot of kind of swirling, you know, stars in the sky. I'm like right on the crack of this table today. There we go. And so you can come in here and add, you know, lots of, you know, spiraling lines. And you're going to fill this. Don't forget, you probably also, and you want to blend, don't forget to blend. I actually kind of blended, and then I kept coming back and I would add some more, and then I would blend and I would come back and add some more. And then at the end, I kind of left some of it where I did not blend it. I don't want this to be much bigger. I'm kind of keeping an eye on where my little mark is so that I know how much of this to put on here. And so you're going to keep just kind of coming in and adding this color. And before you get it all finished, you know, all of this area is going to be covered with some kind of color, all right? And I'm going to kind of leave that part up to you. And while I kind of finish up on this, let's go to today's quote. Our quote today comes from a German writer, Franz Kafka, who said, "Anyone who keeps the ability to see beauty never grows old." Okay, so you're going to keep going with your background, and I was going to mention to you to not forget to, you know, include the moon. And so you might want to do the moon, you know, since you've got that yellow going around there, you might want to choose maybe an orangish kind of color to kind of come in with first, and then maybe come in with a little bit and blend these together. So you'll notice we've been doing lots of blending. And then, and I came in, and I'll show you my example, my other one here in a second, but just tons of color around here. You know, you can even come in with some blue around in this area. Turquoise looks awesome, kind of a lightish turquoise kind of coming around in here. And you can even come in and kind of add some, you know, around the moon. All right, so let me put this one to the side and show you the very last step, which goes together really quick. Okay, so I have got my top part, the background part, the farthest background part. And then I'm going to have this piece that will go around about in that area. And this one as well. And then this one will come here. Now what I want to do is I want to kind of adjust things so that I know that I don't want to end up with something where I've got a crack here. This should always be tucked down behind the layer that it is, you know, it's in back of. And so I can either move this down, move it up. So I'm going to kind of go right in that area. Okay, so kind of like that. And then all you're going to do is you're just going to start gluing down your layers. So, and I'm covering up some of my really great spiralies in the sky, but that's okay. Maybe next time I'll move it down a little farther. All right, so I'm going to do that layers glued down. Same kind of thing here. I'm just going to lift. You can kind of lay the glue on fairly thick on this one. Make sure you get it straight and make sure you get it to the edge. That's the other thing. It tends to kind of want to go a little crooked on you. And the other thing that I thought would be, we're not going to do this in class, but another thing that I thought would be kind of cool is you could come in with like little pieces of like cardboard and put them behind the layers to where they stick out a little bit. They're like raised up. And I thought that would look pretty awesome too. So, all right, and so my last layer is going to be the foreground. It's going to be my pumpkins. And I'm just going to come in and lay that on the bottom. All right, and then I'll probably need a little bit here. And then we are done. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, that is our, oh, and I talked about it, you can make it more creepy. You know, you come in and do some crows flying in the background if you wanted to. I'm going to keep mine like this. I like it like this. So that wraps up our show today. Thank you so much for joining us. Now go out and make some amazing art.